A father of four joins us with some incredible insight about what life is like inside Israel today. That conversation next. I'm Jenna, and this is Smarter News. Attorney Michael Dvorin has four children. They range in age from just over 18 years old to 8 years old. And we were connected through a mutual friend when I was asking around in my reporting, who could I speak to that can talk about what life is like for an average Israeli family, considering the latest news? It is the latest chapter in a much larger story. But we know over the last several days, Israel attacked Iran with the purpose of targeting Iran's nuclear program. Iran denies that it was on a road to developing a nuclear weapon, but obviously many people disagree with that, including the Israelis, who say that there was intelligence that was the catalyst for this attack at this time. Now there's been an intense exchange of fire between these two countries. And like many stories we cover, there are a lot of opinions on this. And Michael provides just one. But it does give us some unique insight into what life is like for one family inside Israel today. Here's Michael.
I've been a lawyer for 22 years already. I used to work a few years with the Prime Minister and his party. I still represent many of the, I would say, celebs from the politics and journalists and so on in different libel and slander cases. I have married with four children. My elder daughter is a soldier in the army. And of course, those are not the regular days. So we're not worried about her, but she's not with us. So something that we need to take in consideration. So that's my background, I would say. I'm now in the office in Jerusalem.
And is that where are you living right now in Jerusalem,
Yeah, I live
Michael?
right in the outskirts of Jerusalem, like a place that is 5 minutes or 10 minutes by car. So I went to the office, but actually around me everything is quiet. People didn't go to work. Only the what we call the necessary services, such as supermarkets and banks and gas stations. Only those are working. Of course, public transport, but not people. The malls are closed, and most of the shops are closed. Of course, the cafes. It's not the time, I would say, to go around. But I went to my work, to the office. We have here also a shelter. That's the most important thing now, the shelter. Because what happened is that we are the front. The civilians are the front of this war with Iran. The Iranians can't hit our soldiers. The soldiers are the safest people now in Gaza or in Lebanon or in Syria or in the borders. The chance that the rocket will hit them is very small, but the chance that the rocket will hit middle Tel Aviv or Haifa or Jerusalem is much higher. So we don't, and we saw how much damage it can cause. Like if there is a direct hit, nothing can stand with 1,000 kilograms of detonate of a bomb. So it's a serious thing, but all in all, we're optimistic because Iran has what it has, but it's going to finish. So what the IDF is doing now is taking care of their arsenal of missiles, and slowly but surely it will be gone. And meanwhile, the IDF, takes care of the world threat of the nuclear capabilities of Iran on the one hand, but also takes care of this missile threat, which is also, by the way, a threat not only to Israel, but also to the Western world. And sometimes I think that the Western world doesn't realize that. They say to themselves, yeah, it's far, it's somewhere in the Middle East or whatever, they're so far, but it's not that far. The Iranians, can develop and will develop, if the regime stays, capabilities and long-range missiles that can cover certainly Europe, but maybe even reach the United States. So I would not, just look at it and say, yeah, it's Israel's problem. No, Israel is solving a much bigger problem. First of all, to the Israelis, to the existence of Israel, but also I think to the other world, and we deserve credit for that.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's take it bit by bit. And
Yeah.
Israel does have quite a bit of bipartisan support. The question is, what are the next steps for the United States and what does support look like? And I want to ask you a little bit about that. Before I do, though, you're a father of four. Can you describe to us what does the shelter look like? You're at work now. So can you walk us through if a siren goes off, what do you do at work? If a siren goes off and your wife is home with your three youngest children, what does that look like for your family?
So we have, it depends. The newer houses have a shelter inside the house. So it's relatively easy. For us, for instance, we have a private house, so we need to just go down to the shelter, which is under the house, and just stay there until the IDF says that it's safe to go back home. So, for instance, this night we went 2 times. And some of the kids are already sleeping there because we don't want to wake them up, So, the smallest kid, the younger kids sleep there, and we just come, We take the dog, go inside, stay there for 30 minutes, watch the news, and so on, and then get out. And they didn't even shoot at the direction of Jerusalem. They didn't fire at the direction of Jerusalem, but rather to Tel Aviv. But you can hear all the time the collusion between the missiles and the arrow system that meets the missile in space. And then, parts of the missile fall. And sometimes you can see that, just a part fell, like a giant part somewhere on the street or wherever. So this is by itself, by the way, dangerous. It's not the missile, but it's also, something that comes from the space very quickly can kill anyone. So anyway, this is at home. But we also have like a public shelter, and they need to run outside, literally run, because we have like 2 minutes from the moment we hear the siren. So now the bonus, I'm saying, with the fact that they fire from Iran, is that we have like 10 minutes to know that there's going to be rockets. But the siren goes on only 2 minutes before the missile comes. So, but it's enough. Okay. And also now that we know before, like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes before, then relatively easy, you can go to the public shelter and then meet the neighbors' kids, the neighbors' dogs. It's actually quite interesting, I would say. In the middle of the night, we fix their Wi-Fi and television and so on. So it's nice. It's interesting anyway. But we stay, if we can, we stay at home. But now, because of those giant missiles, we have second thoughts, because anything the missile hits directly gets destroyed. Okay, you don't have no matter what shelter you have, like in the house, gets destroyed. And just this night, people were inside the shelter in their apartment, and it got a direct hit, and they all died. Okay, so it's a threat. It's a threat, and it's not that nice. Now you asked about my work, so here also there is a shelter, and above me is their hotel. So yesterday there was a siren, and I went together with all the hotel guests, to this big shelter, and I felt secure because it was really, really underground. So you thought really a very big missile should hit it so that anything would happen. So this is our routine now. We hope that the IDF does the job really quickly, because my kids, like 8-year-old and 11-year-old, they know everything. They know if the Houthis from Yemen sent a missile and what to do, and grab the dog and go back. And they're not in any panic for now. Okay, part of it because they don't understand really the damage that it can cause, but also it's like a routine.
What is the most difficult question that your children have asked you about this certain time period? Thinking about really Israel being under attack since October 7th. Has there been a
Right.
moment, a conversation with one of your children that that startled you or that you struggled to explain as a parent?
So, the October 7th massacre was actually much more traumatizing than, the missiles flying. Because there, the terrorists came to their homes. They slaughtered them in the beds, they raped, they burned. And no matter how much we tried to hide, the horrifying facts, the kids today know everything because they're connected to TikTok and Instagram and the schools. So you can't really hide it. So they know everything. And also in Israel, this question of the kidnapped people, the hostages, it's so burning and so painful that it comes from all the places. So yeah, the questions were pretty challenging. What happens if they come now to our house? How do you know that the guy that came to fix the porch is not a terrorist? How come you trust him? And when I say we've known him for 10 years, they say, yeah, the people in the south near Gaza also have known their neighbors for many years, and many of them worked in their houses and around, and they came to kill them. So those, I think, were the toughest questions, because this really touches the core of the existence of the Jewish people in this area of the Middle East. Meaning that on the one hand, they're all our neighbors, are people, and they have families, and they want to live just like us. And that's what we want to believe. And certainly I, that live in Jerusalem, and we have many Arabs here, and my waiter can be an Arab, and the guy in the bank, and my doctor, and everything. We are all together mixed up, so it all looks fine, as it has to, as it needs to be. And the guy that made my house was an Arab, so all is well. But then came October 7th, and then you start to think that nothing is well. And while we want to live, I would say, together, the other side might have other plans for us. So this is the most uh, troubling fact, because you ask yourself, until when? How long should we be so alert and so sharp in our reactions? Everybody is a terrorist. I don't want to suspect this guy. I don't want, but automatically I see a youngster. I see him with a beard. Might be look like he's a radical Islamist, and he's my taxi driver. So what should I do? So before October 7th, I think, like slowly but surely, we had a period that it was more of trust, I would say. I would go to Arab neighborhoods to buy, whatever food and on Saturday and stuff. And but then, I went and got a license to a gun after October 7th. Okay, I don't know even why, but everybody feels that they need to be, at least, when the urgent matter comes, you have to be protect the children. So I think this is more troubling, by the way, than the Iranian threat and the Syrian threat, whatever, because those people will remain our neighbors, and unless they do, I don't know, another mistake like October 7th, but still, they're here, and you wonder, why do they hate us so much, and what can we do that this hatred will go away? And for this, I'm not sure anyone has answers. Anyone, because this is something very deep.
Well, connecting the dots on a few of those things, as you mentioned, your neighbors that are in closer proximity, one of the reasons why we're continuing and we have talked about Iran is because we know Iran has supported these terrorist groups that live in close proximity to Israel, including Hamas, responsible for the attack on October 7th. But Israel has been attacked through missiles over the last year plus since October 7th, and a variety of different attacks. You mentioned one coming from the Houthis. How does now feel different than what's transpired over the last almost 2 years? Does it feel different this time, Michael, compared to what it has in the past?
So listen, it feels a little bit different because Iran is a state. they're 90, I think 90 million people state population. And they're smart people also. They have the scientists and they have the Chinese that back them up and the Russians in the past. Now they don't have, I think, time and energy for the Iranians, but it's a big state, like 20 times bigger than Israel, maybe. So you cannot, just say, yeah, those are Hamas people that came with cars and and knives to butcher the people in the south, the Jews. This is a big state, but we're very optimistic. Eventually, I mean, there is a reason to be scared or to be worried from those big missiles. It's a little bit like a roulette, right? You don't know where it's going to hit. Take my mother, for instance. My mother lives very closely to the prime minister's house in middle Jerusalem, center of Jerusalem. Like when I say very close, like 100, 200 meters. Okay. So if the Iranians aim at his house and the arrow system miss the house, just the rocket, I mean, then and it hits the house or it's its surroundings. Now I'm sure the prime minister is not there because he's in the bunker somewhere, but my mother is there. So this is the point to be worried. But it's an existence war, and once we get out of it, and it won't be that far away, because as I said, let's say they have 3,000 missiles. They already shot 300, 400. They can have missiles for 2 more weeks, 4 more weeks, 3 more months. That's it. Then they're game over for them. And we didn't speak yet about the chances that maybe the Iranians themselves will wake up and decide it's a possibility, it's an opportunity to overthrow the regime, the totalitarian regime. So we're very optimistic. We waited for this moment. So I'm happy, and I think most of the Israelis understand that we had no choice. And I don't know if Netanyahu is right when he's saying that Iran was so close to the bomb, like 2, 3, 4 weeks. I don't know if it's right. But even if the bomb was in 1 year or 2 years, if you see how the world reacts now to what Israel does in Gaza, who would give us in a year or two from now the credit to bomb Iran? This generation, by the way, of the youngsters is very, very smart. I would say even smarter than us. They are growing into a world that knows better the enemy and the neighbors. And we will be respected in this neighborhood. If you're not, by the way, respected in this neighborhood, you will be the food. They will eat you. So I'm optimistic.
You're optimistic, but what are some of your biggest concerns? What are you watching for that could change some of that optimism?
Well, I'm always concerned, as I said, by my neighbors, meaning the people from, what happens if the people from the villages that surround Jerusalem or where I live decided, in Saturday morning to take their knives and their guns if they have and go to my neighborhood or to my place or to Jerusalem. What happens then? This is my main concern. I'm not concerned from Iran. They're so far away that when they finish the missiles, that's it. Bye bye. We're not. They cannot hurt us anymore. But our neighbors, this is the big problem because we can't really, if it's theological, if it's Islam versus Judaism, then nothing will solve it. Okay, so this is, I think, a point of concern. Other than that, we have, the regular concern. You don't want that missile hitting your head, okay? But we have nothing to do with that. It's like faith. It's
Mm-hmm.
like faith. I have a Facebook friend, by the way, a few of those already, but one, and she wrote, my mother just got killed from the missile from Ramat Gan that landed in Ramat Gan 2 days ago, So you see that and you say, wow, and that's faith. Okay, so that's a small point of worrying, but you can't say it doesn't exist, of course.
How has your faith been challenged? How has your relationship with God been challenged, or
Oh,
how have you
that's
navigated that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So I'm not a religious Jew. However, you got to think in a way that someone, and it's not a human that controls all the events. Because even if Trump wouldn't have been elected, nothing of that would not have happened. If there was no October 7th, nothing of that wouldn't have happened. So we wouldn't be, Syria would not change, and Hezbollah wouldn't be destroyed. So all of that because of of the cruelty and the barbarism of October 7th. So you got to think that someone is controlling things, or it's just, I don't know, faith, as we said. So I don't know what's going on, but I think someone is guarding the Jewish people right now, because the things that are happening now will change the Middle East forever. I told my wife yesterday, I think in a year or two, we eat hummus in Damascus, in Syria, and we go to Tehran for a weekend, like in 2, 3 years from now. And it seems so, imaginary, but still, everything changes now. Everything.
I have imagined that periodically. I've always wanted to go to Damascus. I've always wanted to go to Tehran. And obviously, that's not available to Americans typically in a regular situation. And so, what you're describing hits home for me because, and probably for so many of our audience too, of this idea that we could have such widespread peace, that sort of travel would be available. Why do you think these actions now will create a safer world for your children? That this fear and concern for their safety now is worth it in the long run?
Because first of all, the world likes winners, winners, and Israel will prevail, already prevail, and we get a huge respect from the Arab world. That's what I think. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Syria, maybe the new Syria, Lebanon, and others will decide that there is no point in fighting or boycotting or giving arms to those Palestinians. There's no point, and it's better just to make peace and do economic stuff together and so on. So no one would be able um, uh, to say that Israel is not a real power in the Middle East, and therefore they will respect us. They will know that if they challenge us from a military point of view, they'll get the answer. And of course, all the flowers go to Benjamin Netanyahu, the old lion, that showed real quality of decision taking. Think of that. All the destiny of the Jewish and the Israeli civilians is on his shoulders, and they're on him from inside, like radical left, and from outside. And with the Biden administration, it was tough. It was tough, and he even said, "We're going to fight. If Biden is not going to provide us weapons, we're going to fight with our nails," he said, Benjamin Netanyahu. So he survived that. And he inspired us because he's a son of an historian and he knows history. He admires Churchill and he knows the history of the Jewish people. And therefore, for a Jew to be able to be a power somewhere in the world that's new, because Jews were 2,000 years in exile, they didn't have a state. So really historic times, I would say.
So, what would winning look like? If you could say, we're going to win here, this is what a win looks like. How would you describe that?
So first of all, it's already a win, okay? But Netanyahu stated that he wants a total victory. A total victory. That's what, by the way, Winston Churchill said in World War II. And a total victory means that Iran is no longer a threat, and all its proxies is no longer a threat to Israel. And maybe the regime is overturned. I hope, I pray for the Persians, for the Persian people. They're not the enemy of the Jews, never were. This is a total victory. But any version of that, even now, even if we stop now, I'm not saying to stop now, I'm saying finish them. But even if we stop now, we already attacked in Iran. We already took out some of their nuclear facilities. So, wow, that's
I'm
big.
curious
That's
that
big.
I have to ask you this because you said that you once worked with, uh, as part of your legal profession, with the prime minister. Have you been in contact with the prime minister? Are you friendly with him? Have you spoken with any
No.
government officials?
Well, some of the government officials, first of all, I represent, like some ministers in my cases. And I'm a good friend of the secretary of the government. But no one of them have time for me, and I'm not nagging. But I can tell you that I did have a lot of time with many hours with the prime minister, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and this was the time where all the investigations against him, corruption, stuff like that, were really in their peak. And I used to come to him to the house, and and he would take advice from me and so on and so on. So one thing I can tell you, this guy is so cold-blooded. He's not. How shall I say it? He's not getting excited from anything. He's like a machine of decision taking. And even though it was what I dealt with was like his own fate. He could go to jail. Things can happen. It costs a lot of money, the defense, and so on. He's so cool. That's the word, cool. And now he's also cool. The way that he's handled this war is brilliant.
As a father of four, as someone who is clearly very proud of their country and of their heritage, there could be someone listening to this that's a mother of four or a father of two here in the United States. What would you like to say to American families? What would you like to share with them about what this experience has been like, and what would you like your message to be?
My message for you, for the American people, is one: don't forget your survival instinct. Don't be, just thinking about yourself, be individual, my TikTok and my likes, and, but think of the collective of if it's the American people or the Israeli nation also needs to be uh, strengthened all the time, because there are forces, radical forces, post-Marxist forces that strive to break the community. We have the survival instinct inside us. The massacre, unfortunately, of October 7th forced the Jewish people, the Israeli nation, to find it in itself. And by the way, you said belief, to find the belief in the nation, in God. And we're there. We know what we need to do. And I think that the Western world, in his own version, will also have to do it against his
Hmm.
own inner enemies and outside enemies. So be alert. That's it. And we will prevail.
I haven't heard it kind of quite framed that way, and it's very impactful to think about. Michael, thank you so much for your time today. I know obviously you're very busy, and we
Thank you
appreciate
very
your
much.
insights.
Thank you very much.